Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Kyle here, the You Know I Got Soul and Soul in Stereo podcast is back. Episode 47 is upon us. Got Tom and Ed with me. And guys, we've been doing these podcasts every week. We're actually on schedule for once.
I like it. Our schedules have been matching up.
It's crazy.
And before we begin, I got to give a shout out to Ed. Man, I like your new haircut. You modeled yourself after Lil Yachty with the beads and the braids. I like it, Ed.
I'm not sure what haircut you saw, but I don't have the freaking Twizzlers with the little barrettes tied around the side of my head. I got a grown man cut, player.
Oh, man.
Sharp fade with the bezel blade. Shout out to Nas. I keep that joint crispy.
Woo. Jeez.
Calm down, guys. Let's put our thinking caps on. Ed, you're gonna have to hide the Little Yachty hair because we got to put our thinking caps on because.
God, y'all are starting pretty early today. We're 2 minutes in the podcast and my blood pressure's up.
We've been talking about TLC for the last couple of podcasts. New album, Apologies by Tom. New single, which we announced last week with Snoop Dogg, which is coming out fairly soon. And now TLC wants us to name their new album, which I saw some pretty funny comments going around Twitter, but your thoughts on that? The one comment that stood out to me was, man, they're making us do everything. Now they want us to name their album for them?
Good Lord, that was like, come record TLC's vocals.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of cool. I just don't know what they're going to come up with from this. Why can't they think of something on their own? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, jokes aside, this whole project has kind of been fan driven, so I think it's a cute little thing to keep going. But at some point, can I please hear the Snoop single? Jeez. Next thing is like, design our album cover. Like, alright, but I want to hear some music, dog.
Some other tweets that I saw for that was one person named the album title "Just Give Me My Money Back." So,
Oh my god, damn, vicious.
Yep. But
No,
all joke.
at least there's no apology needed from me this week, right?
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet, but we're just 5 minutes in.
Okay.
All jokes aside, though, we got a couple of new releases that came out recently. Two surprise projects, Tom. What are they?
Mack Wilds, AfterHours, and Adrian Marcel's debut, GMFU. Ed, you reviewed the Mack Wilds project for the site. What did you think of it?
I sure did. Check out YouKnowIGotSoul.com to see what your boy had to say about that. But just kind of a short synopsis of it. The album, the actual kind of response across social media was pretty mixed. I know a lot of fans who are, and especially us, we are big fans of his throwback 90s sound, and that album isn't like that at all. This album is kind of the mainstream sound that you're used to, the atmospheric beats, the sort of singing slash rapping over some of the instrumentation. So it's okay. If that's what you like, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But my problem with the project is it just doesn't have a good selection of singles, well, not necessarily singles, but album cuts that are strong. You've got a couple here and there that are somewhat memorable, but then it's just like a whole lot of, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And spread across a project that's probably like 12 tracks long, that means it's not that memorable. So it was a decent album. I did think it was better than his debut album. So it was successful on that end, but not as strong as some of the singles that we've seen over the past couple of years. So a mild disappointment in that end, but by no means a bad album.
You know, it was something interesting, and Kyle made me realize, I didn't even think about it, but Salam Remy didn't even work on this album with Mack. You know, Salam was one who signed him originally to record music, and maybe that had something to do with the sound, because, you know, he brought that throwback kind of hip-hop-y sound to the last album, and then this one, he wasn't there at all for it, so that was interesting to me.
That was very noticeable. Salam is one of my favorite producers, and I love to hear him layer his kind of hip-hop themed tracks over R&B vocals. Like, I think it works very, very well. So I kept waiting for that Salam type track, and it never came. It was just more the atmospheric, smoky, kind of laid back beats. And again, he did a decent job over them, but it's nothing we haven't heard before, and we know he can go a little harder than that. So, like I said, just an okay album. Mild disappointment, but not a failure.
It's funny.
Now, Kyle,
it's funny.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's funny because Mack has had a top 10 record on our countdown for the last 2 years. 2 years ago it was Love in the 90s, and then last year it was Camouflage. And when I was listening to this album, I got to the song where he samples Stingy by Genuine. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. But I was like, man, this is it. This is the top 10 record right here. And then the beat slowed down, and I started hearing trap drums. I'm like, all right, never mind. On to the next one.
That's exactly what happened to me, and I wish I had my notes in front of me because I wrote in my notes almost exactly what you said. Like, I heard it, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's what we've been waiting for. And it just didn't happen. It just slowed all the way down. And you, like you said, it hit those familiar drum patterns that we've heard 1,000 times in the past 2 years. And again, it's a song that a lot of people might be a fan of, but it didn't hit that next gear that I was really expecting. And that's really where the album just didn't do it for me.
I wanted to ask you, Kyle, why are these two artists releasing these quote-unquote surprise type of albums like this? I didn't quite get why they would do that.
Well, I think with Mack, if you've seen some of his recent interviews, he had kind of hinted on music coming. And it's been a while for him, and I don't know what the behind the scenes are with him and Salam. I believe he's still signed to Salam from the impression that I got on Salam's Instagram. But the other project, Adrian Marcel, that surprised me. Tom, you and I have been following him since the beginning, and it's like his record label at the time kept trying to push him in different directions to see what would stick, and it didn't seem like anything was sticking. And then all of a sudden, here's his debut album, which I believe is released independently. So, I don't know, but it's cool to see Adrian Marcel. And, I know we're still talking about Mack, but it was kind of cool to see Adrian Marcel resurface. And I believe he's actually selling his albums, like physical copies of his albums, and he's signing each one for his fans the traditional way.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of neat.
Right. Well...
yeah, I could have sworn Adrian has been out like 20 years at this point. When we realized this was his debut, I was like, really? Dude's got like 18 mixtapes. But it's just weird that this is his official debut and it kind of poof came out of nowhere.
Right.
Tom, did you get a chance to listen to the album?
Yeah, I previewed it briefly. I didn't really get a good listen. It's kind of along the lines of some of what his mixtapes were. Maybe some of the sound was just a little trendier. I felt like some of his mixtapes, at least the music kind of paid homage to some of the 90s and the Raphael Sadiq vibe, who he was the protege of. But this album, I think he kind of stepped more towards a trendier sound, which probably he felt was more of a necessity at this point in his career. So I'm going to take a good listen. Ed, I'm curious to see what you think when you hear it too.
Yeah, I hope to get on that one maybe as soon as this podcast is over, and next week we can chat about it a little bit more in detail. But he's someone we've had our eye on for a long time, and I was a big fan of a lot of his earlier mixtapes. So to hear that he's kind of doing a trendier thing, kind of like Mack Wilds, I'm like, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, guys, there's one thing for certain, and not to be negative about it, but just to give you some numbers from recent releases. Kevin Ross, first week sold about 3,000. La Portia Renee, first week, sold about, I think, 4,000, 4,000 to 5,000. And Leela James, first week, sold about 6,000. So hopefully Mack Wilds and Adrian Marcel do a little better, but guys, it's not looking pretty.
Man, I thought Leela would do a little better than that. Jeez.
Yeah. I'd like to actually start including, if we can, the streaming numbers. Is that available anywhere for where we can just kind of, like a culmination of all the streaming sites? That'd be interesting to see.
On the charts, what it does is it gives you the pure sales numbers, and it also has the pure sales plus streaming numbers. And what I've noticed is for the majority of the numbers for R&B artists, most of them are from pure sales. The streaming thing isn't really relevant in R&B.
Even the younger generation of artists?
Yeah, even Trey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And you know what? I actually read an article on that too, about Chris Brown, who every single he puts out, it tops urban and rhythmic. But if you look at his streaming numbers, they're not on par with, let's say, a Drake or a Kendrick Lamar. And I'm not saying they're on the same caliber, but Chris Brown is the biggest R&B artist, and his streaming numbers are pretty bad for those standards. So it's just a different time we're in right now.
Time to get into my edition of the current events here.
Yep.
Do your thing, player.
Ed, first of all, I want to congratulate you and your wife. You just celebrated another anniversary.
Well, thank you, player. Yes, 11 years. We are old as dirt.
It had me thinking back to your old nickname that you told us you used to go by, Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Look, player, that was in the late 90s. We have moved on.
Wow.
Well, I had a point actually about that. No, because Mack Wilds was talking about that on one of his songs, and you mentioned it in your review of the album. So it got me thinking. You have this love letter section on your site, Ed. What is it about stealing someone's girl that's even in any bit or form classy or even the thing to do? Like, why is that cool? I don't get it.
The player, it's all about ego. That's all it is. And when it comes down to, especially look at the Chris Browns and the Trey songs, it's all ego. To say that you're going around snatching up women is to the height of manhood. And when society dictates manhood by how many girls you can pull, if you're stealing girls, then that means you're more of a man than the next dude that has one girl. So society is screwed up, if you couldn't tell.
Yep.
I'm just thinking, like, imagine we're married, me and Ed. Kyle is still living the bachelor lifestyle. So, but imagine the type of women that are willing to be pulled by, leave a relationship and just get pulled by a famous artist. That's a great woman right there, I'd have to say.
I'm not going to blow up anybody, but I actually know some women who fit that description. I'm not even kidding, player. I know some. And I'm not going to say which artist they got pulled by, because you're going to be like, really? You left that for like some D-list rapper? But don't let me, not trying to dry snitch on any of my readers out there. But my point is, unfortunately, when it's all about ego and it's about how many girls you can pull, and then when some women are attracted to, well, they can brag about being pulled by someone who was on the radio one time in 1991. I guess that's all it takes for them.
Sheesh.
Wow.
Well,
just be glad, Tom. I am glad that we got out of the game before the social media era. Poor Kyle. Yeah. I don't know what you're gonna do, player.
Gonna be sliding in some DMs tonight.
Oh. I am so sorry. Don't get screenshotted, because then I'll be writing love letters about you.
Oh, boy.
Damn.
Now, on to the next topic. So, Kyle, you brought this to my attention. I guess Tyrese apparently called out Usher for making grown music when he was younger, and now making younger music when he's grown. So how did that whole thing go?
Tyrese did an interview with Sway, and it's funny because you just talked about this whole love letter thing. Tyrese, he got married recently, and he's on his whole mantra about grown man season and being grown. And I think
goodness.
I mean, hey, that's what Tyrese does, right? But he sparked up the conversation about how Shame was #1 for 16 weeks, and the Black Rose album was #1 on the Billboard charts. And the one thing he pointed out was that album and that song had nothing to do with what was going on at radio, which is true. But then
it's right.
Then he randomly name dropped Usher. He did say that he wasn't trying to diss Usher or whatever, but he did point out the fact that Usher made No Limit, which is geared towards 17-year-olds, and Tyrese doesn't understand why Usher's doing that. And essentially he just said that Confessions was more of a reflection of Usher's, life at the time, as opposed to No Limit, which has nothing to do with Usher, because let's face it, Usher is a late 30-year-old guy who's married now, and he shouldn't be singing songs like No Limit. But that was sort of the point. But that got me to thinking, Tom, like, it's not Usher that's just doing that. If you even look at some of our favorite 90s artists, their later albums or more recent albums, they're a lot younger too.
I feel like that's your whole generation, honestly, at this point. Realistically. Yep. I mean, I can't say 90s artists are doing that, though. I mean, besides, like, Usher and maybe, like, from my generation, like, who, I'm trying to think.
Brandy?
Like, you're not having, like, yeah, I mean, like, celebrities, maybe, but you're not seeing, like, Brian McKnight and, like, Eric Benet and, like, Music Soul Child really going that route, though, you know?
Didn't Donnell Jones have a song with David Banner?
Yeah, but that song wasn't in the same vein that we're saying. But here's the thing, player, because let me break it down for you. First of all, Tyrese is out here. He's suddenly Cliff Huxtable. He's been married 2 weeks, and now he's out here giving people marriage advice. Player, look, I remember your raggedy Instagram statuses about what women should be cooking and what women should be doing and this and that. So calm down and holler at us brothers that's been married a decade so we can tell you the real. Second of all, to attack Usher and to bring up those numbers for that Black Rose album. Listen, I love Black Rose, but Tyrese, sit down. I understand the point he's trying to make, and in some ways it's a little unfair. But I do understand the frustration that he has, because Lord knows if you listen to this podcast, you know we think about that Hard to Love album from Usher. But Usher and Mariah and a lot of artists from that generation, unfortunately, even though they have the legendary status, they're still trying to get those numbers to what they were in 2090 or whatever. So in order to do that, they're kind of catering to younger audiences, and that's why their music is getting younger as they're getting older, because they're trying to get those numbers back up to when they were super into the public eye. And I don't agree with that, but I see the mentality for doing it. I see exactly why Usher made that Hard to Love album, and it's certainly hard to love, and I can also see why it did flopped. But for Tyrese to attack in that way, it's a little grandstanding there. Although I'd see where he's frustrated, because I'm frustrated too. But, I don't know, a little self-righteous there from Tyrese. Not that should be any surprise.
Kick him while he's down.
Does anyone believe that if Tyrese really wanted to know why Usher made that song, he couldn't have just called him himself and found out instead of calling him out on the radio?
Because it's Tyrese. Wasn't this dude like yelling at Genuine on Instagram like 2 weeks ago? Like we know he got G's number. Come on.
Oh, man.
Well, on some positive note, like I've mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, we're talking about Grown Man Season, and then all of a sudden, right after that, Tyrese announces he's working on a hip-hop album, so gotta love it.
Yeah, but he's got these legion of rabid fans that will live on his every word, though, it seems like. You ever read his comments?
He definitely has a fan base, and I cannot hate on that. And I'm a Tyrese fan, except when he opens his mouth for interviews. When he opens his mouth to sing, we cool. But he has a great fan base, and they'll ride for him, and he's going to come out with Black Tie or whatever, and y'all will like it, and then you'll get mad when I say that he can't rap, but we'll leave that for another podcast. 6 months down the line when it drops.
Yep. Tom, I've got some exciting news for you as well.
Uh-oh.
So, Justin Timberlake, we mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that he's in the studio right now putting out a new album, which I believe is coming out in the coming months. He's been in the studio with the Neptunes as well as Timbaland and Danger, so that should be good. But we have your other boy, Sam Smith. He's in the studio with Timbaland as well.
No.
That's like the weirdest.
No, please.
Yeah, that is a very bizarre and odd combination. But who knows what comes out of that?
See, and I know how Tom feels about Sam Smith. He's okay to me, but that is such a weird combo that I actually want to hear what comes of that. That could be interesting. I mean, it could be a disaster, but it could be interesting.
There are so many other artists I'd love to hear with Timbaland besides Sam Smith.
He's talented, though.
Man,
Come on.
speaking of which, how come we never got an album from that guy from Empire?
Which guy from Empire? Oh, Jamal?
The singer on there.
I'm blanking on his name. Journey's brother.
Jussie, is that his name?
Yeah.
How come he never made an album?
It's probably on his way. I mean, he has been pretty busy, but it would not shock me if he had an album on the way.
I just feel like the right time for the album would have been like around the first season, like right after it ended. And now I think they're in like the third season or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's probably would have been the height of it. But maybe he's just a little too tied up with acting right now to get to it, and maybe music will be later on. I'm very surprised we haven't gotten one.
Do people still watch Empire?
I was thinking of that same thing.
I am one of those. I still watch it, players, and it is a disaster. I have this thing where I'm a completionist. It must be the reviewer in me. Like, no matter how bad it is, I have to finish it to the end. And Empire is awful, but I'm still watching it.
I feel like to sum up that show, they just do like some outrageous stuff to keep you hooked, and that's what constantly keeps you hooked because you never know what's coming next. It's just so crazy.
That's exactly it. Every week is like one episode should be 4 episodes because so much crazy stuff happens in one episode that it makes no sense. People just randomly getting shot and dying, and people getting robbed, and Cookie cussing somebody out, and people getting stabbed, and somebody got a secret baby, and this is all in the first 30 minutes. Every week.
Damn, this sounds like Trapped in the Closet.
Oh my gosh. Please don't bring that back.
Which, by the way, is Trapped in the Closet a R&B classic?
Oh my goodness.
I think this is a fair question.
Wow.
I think that you need to put down the nose candy if you were talking about Trapped in the Closet being like, oh my gosh. I will say the first song or edition or whatever, that was very well done and very imaginative, and I like that. But everything after chapter 1 needs to go away and be burned forever.
Damn. So some other news for you guys before we get into Tom's main discussion. First of all, we all love Jay-Z here. Well, bad news, guys. You're either going to have to stop listening to Jay-Z or you're going to have to purchase Tidal because Jay-Z's taken all of his music off Apple Music and Spotify.
And see, I'm surprised it took this long for it to happen. His music is already off of YouTube because I've tried to do some stuff for my site and pull up some videos, and like 90% of his stuff is like not there. I'm not shocked that it took this long, but see, y'all laugh at old man Ed and his stack of CDs. At least I can still listen to Reasonable Doubt when I want to.
I feel like old heads like me and Ed, like, at least have either the CD or the MP3 by now, if we really want to hear a Jay-Z song. I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you streaming guys. Sorry.
So, Tom, before we get into your main topic, can I just say one thing? I want to say rest in peace
Go for it.
to The Undertaker, who officially retired from wrestling after an illustrious career. And Tom, it got me to thinking, we've been talking about a lot of funerals recently, right?
Yep.
So, why don't you introduce us to the discussion for today?
Today's discussion is R&B has died. We're celebrating and honoring its legacy.
Jeez.
Damn.
You probably wonder what the hell I'm talking about.
Oh my
God.
we
got this YouTube comment. The guy said, R&B is effing dying. That's all it said. I loved it. Kyle had the post on Instagram. It was so funny. But we did some research after that comment. And we figured out it actually is dying. And it actually just passed away recently. So we're here today. We're gathered here today to celebrate the passing of R&B. We've got some esteemed guests joining us today for this ceremony. Thank you all for being here. I just saw T-Pain walk in the door. He's taking a seat in the front row.
Oh, geez.
The Dream is coming in right behind him. Guys, you don't laugh at a funeral. Okay? Oh, man, I just got word that Stevie Wonder was turned away at the door. They didn't recognize him, so he's not allowed.
Damn.
He couldn't see the door anyway.
Ja Rule and 50 Cent are walking in together as well, taking a seat on the side, followed by Ray J and Future. They're all showing up for this commemoration. Tyrese did his best to single-handedly save the genre, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough, guys.
His Twitter fingers were on fire. He couldn't make it happen.
You know, I did a little research. R&B started in the 1940s. I don't think any of us were around for that, but it lasted a good almost 80 years. That's pretty good. Disco only lasted, what, like 10 years?
Yeah.
About that.
So we've had some good subgenres of R&B. New Jack Swing, which some people would say is still living on in Europe.
Shout out to Soul Child.
And some others along the way. The trap R&B era really was the final dagger to the genre, I'd say. But yeah, we're here to give it a nice send off, and unfortunately, it's gone. Does anyone have anything to add?
Let me crash this funeral like Dwayne Wade did Whitney's wedding back in a different world. And see, Kyle, this is the part where on wrestling, when the gong hits and Undertaker sits up out of the casket. Let me be the gong right quick. Because, players, if you are telling me that R&B is dead, this must be your first day listening to the You Know I Got Soul in Stereo podcast. Because if you've been around here longer than 2 seconds, you know that R&B is alive and well. And I don't know Mr. YouTube Man, but I found that when people say R&B is dead, most of the time what they really mean is the R&B I liked is dead. And if you like 90s R&B, for example, yeah, it's dead because it's 2017, player. It's not the 90s. And this is coming from someone, as you know, who still lives in the 90s, because if it was up to me, we'd still be rocking the 90s gear with the oversized Timbs and the jean suits on. But my point is, you cannot tell me R&B is dead unless you have never heard Tamia's last album, or Jasmine Sullivan's last album, or those albums Marsha put out, or, man, just some, I hate to give them props, but I have to. Tyrese's Black Rose, Eric Benet's Solange album from last year, Ro James. My girl Janelle Monáe has put out 2 of the most adventurous R&B albums I have ever heard in the past 10 years. So, even though we have the Ushers among us who disappoint us every time, and unfortunately that list of legends keeps growing who disappoint us, and then you got Bryson Tiller, the guy who probably poisoned R&B and put it on his deathbed and still showed up to his funeral. Thanks, dude. And the Rihannas of the world who keep saying it's R&B and ain't never been R&B in her life. If you say R&B is dead, player, that's a personal problem. Check your playlist, because over here there are plenty of artists that we mentioned. We just mentioned Kevin Ross and Leela James and all these great artists who are putting out great material and are getting like 3,000 in first week sales. R&B ain't dead because of them. R&B might be dead because y'all aren't purchasing it. So before you go to the funeral, make sure you're not the ones that's putting bullets into the corpse. That's all I'm saying.
Damn. Well, Ed, I get what you're saying, and I love what you're saying, and I wish I could defend it, but I was on my way to the R&B funeral as well, blasting the new Omarion song, Distance, which just kind of sounds like jungle music.
Oh my gosh.
So, R&B might be dead, guys.
Well, let me chime in actually for a second. Ed, I totally disagree with you. 100%.
What's new?
And here's why.
Please tell me why.
Okay. Really, the final straw was what Kyle once told me about, how everyone is influenced by hip-hop now. So, it's like the next generation is going to be influenced by this generation, and so forth. So who's ever going to be influenced again by traditional R&B? It's going to be no one left to do that. So we're going to have these... We're going to be holding on to our Tyreses and our Joes and our Eric Benets when they're in their 70s. And that's going to be our last hope for traditional R&B. Who else is going to make it?
No, but see, you got to look back at the bigger picture, player, because I can tell you from experience in 1992 when Jodeci and Mary J came on the scene with their hip-hop influenced R&B, that people were trying to put the R&B corpse in the ground then in 92. And by 94 and 95, R&B was probably as high as it had ever been. The difference is, because I see what you're saying, the difference between then and now is that back then the genre was growing and there were still talented artists incorporating different genres but still staying to the root of R&B. What's happening now is people are taking hip-hop influences and just making hip-hop and sprinkling R&B over top of it instead of starting with the R&B background, well, the R&B foundation, and then influencing that with hip-hop. So it kind of flipped. That's the problem. It can be fixed if we have artists who are talented enough to do that. And they are. Because first person that comes to mind who does that is Ro James and DJ Camper. That's a potent combination who do that. We talked about Remy earlier. Salam Remy and Mack Wilds when he's not trying to sound like Drake. That's another artist who is doing it the right way. But when you got these Bryson Tillers up here half rapping on stuff over beats that sound like I made them, that's not going to be what keeps R&B afloat. So R&B has always been influenced by hip-hop, going way, way back. So it can still thrive if you do it correctly. These youngins ain't doing it correctly.
Well, while you guys are over here complaining about R&B, I'll probably be at the beach wearing a sombrero, drinking a tequila, listening to that new Drake song, Passion Fruit. I'm just saying.
Oh, God.
I hope you get just pulled under the water and stung by 15 jellyfish.
I don't know, guys. First of all, Ro James is like 30, just so you know. It's not like he's a young new cat who's coming out of nowhere. Like, there's no young people who even know how to play an instrument anymore, who know how to properly sing anymore. Like, it's just not happening, man.
Of course they do. They just aren't getting the shine. The difference is radio. I really contend that the current radio format, well, two things. The current radio format is just stuck on one thing. They know what's hot. Trap is hot. So everything has to sound like trap, or we're not going to play you. Number two thing that's really hurting it is I think the internet culture has a big problem with that, because pretty much anybody can make something that sounds like what's hot without any type of really training. So anybody can put anything out there, get a bunch of stands to blow up their feed, and that way a lot of these labels are signing people based off of the audience they've already created. So you don't really have to be talented, you just have to be popular. That's why you're getting all these people put on with Uzi Vert and them.
Do you realize something, though? If Prince came out today, and if Prince came out as a new artist, they would have laughed that guy and shamed that guy away from even becoming an artist. Same thing, they would have made fun of Stevie Wonder as a young kid. But, this guy can't even see. What does he know? Michael Jackson.
Right.
So none of these all-time greats would have even made it if they came into this generation.
Right. So imagine the talent that's out there. Like, there are people, and I'm not saying they are as great as Stevie Wonder, but there are talented artists out there who aren't getting the shine. And it doesn't mean they don't exist. It means that people are just ignoring them. But the thing that I have always said is, if R&B is dead to you, as a consumer, you are the one who can fix it. Don't be waiting on Mr. Radio DJ dude and Mr. Record Executive to fix it. They ain't fixing it. You fix it by supporting artists who are keeping R&B alive. So go out there and help out poor Leela James, who sold 3 CDs. Poor Adrian Marcel got 2 tracks that he sold up at Target the other day out of his trunk. But everybody's streaming the terrible Drake songs 1,000 times. Like, that's not how this is going to get improved.
No. You know what, though, guys? I can see 2 people turning this around. Number one is DJ Khaled's son, who seems to have these Drake vocals that we're waiting on.
I didn't know that thing existed until like 2 weeks ago. I was like, who is this? It was like a baby wearing like one of the shirts that The Rock used to wear, like them little Versace shirts. Yep. I was like, who is this thing? And they're like, this is Khaled's baby. I was like, someone reproduced with that thing?
The second person that's going to turn R&B around is me, apparently, because I'm looking at the urban charts. There's an artist by the name of Kyle featuring Lil Yachty, the song called I Spy. I don't even know what this song is, but it was kind of cool seeing my name on it.
I know what it is. I know it, and it is... I mean, the dude's name is just Kyle, so the song is just as lazy as his stage name.
Damn.
You know what doesn't help the cause, though? So... Man, a new song came out. I'm not going to name the artist because I don't want to bash him because he's someone we support heavily. And Kyle listened to it and he's like, man, this song is pretty bad. It was this guy's new single. I'm not going to say who, but my generation is just making music that's just so uninspiring. And then Kyle's generation, once again, not mentioning any names, but they don't know what to do. Some of them are making young trap music after making grown music earlier in their career. Some of them are thinking about going to grown music, but they're not really trying to be old, so they don't know what to do. It's just not working.
Yeah, you guys definitely need to go check out Brian McKnight's new song and Bobby V's. Anyway.
Oh my God. Come on, man.
See, I was going to behave and not say anything, but...
I'm sorry. I'm
rubbing off on Kyle. My fault.
Yeah.
Well, the Bobby V thing, I understand what he's trying to do. He's just kind of stuck in the middle. Like, he doesn't want to go all the way. Like Peach Moon, when he made that Grown EP, we've heard from him that it wasn't received as well as it should have been. So he thinks he needs to go younger music. Brian McKnight is just making music on his own in his own home studio and going about it that way. I didn't think the song was that bad. You didn't like it, but that's what he's doing. But just there's no feeling in the music for me, and there used to be. It's just lacking to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Bobby V is... We talked about the issues with Trey Songz before, and Bobby V is of that generation that's kind of stuck in the middle right now. So that makes sense. Unfortunately, I can't make the same excuse for Brian McKnight and artists like him. Unfortunately, even though we just put Brian McKnight in our Hall of Fame, and we'll get to that in a second, he has, for the past couple albums, has kind of had that problem as far as complete packages of work, where his albums are just kind of like 16 different genres just melded together. So I think even legendary artists, so to speak, are having a little bit of trouble finding their voice in today's world. Because he's just kind of doing everything. And that doesn't make for a good album. It's not cohesive.
Yep. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. Like, I know with artists such as Bobby V, they're at least aware that they're in a weird place right now. It doesn't make the situation better, but at least they know.
Yeah, that's true.
Onto some positivity, because we've pretty much just killed off R&B right now. Let's look back at one of our new features, which is the R&B Hall of Fame. So last week, we inducted Brian McKnight into the Hall of Fame. Deborah Cox, shoutouts to Canada, couldn't make the cut, but now we have two new artists that I'd like to introduce to you guys. For those that forgot or aren't aware, what we do each week, we nominate two artists, one being from the fans, so whoever you guys are tweeting us about, commenting on YouTube about, and then the second one is us as a collective. Each week we'll make a pick of our own. So we'll go with the fan pick first. Now guys, we got a lot of comments about this artist because last podcast we spoke, about her extensive catalog, the fact that she's still making great music today, and actually she's going to be putting out a new album in the coming weeks. So for this Hall of Fame induction or nomination, I'd like to nominate Mary J. Blige's ex-boyfriend's group Jodeci.
Oh my God. What the heck?
Can I make my case?
Yes.
Well, first of all, you have Devontae, Dalvin, Casey, and JoJo. So we're also going to include Casey and JoJo into this conversation because they did do some great things on their own as well. But guys, I think this is a pretty straightforward yes for me. A definite yes. The impact that they had, they only really released 3 albums. I'm not even going to include their last one because it wasn't very good. But
man. Jeez.
Of the 3,
he ain't wrong.
Of the 3, I would say, I don't know if there are any classic 5-star albums from them, but the impact that they had on R&B, when we look at some of the groups that came out later from the 112s, the Drew Hills and the Jagged Edge, they all came from that Jodeci tree as far as their image and even as far as the way that they were singing on songs, the subject matter. And then you can't forget about Casey and JoJo as well. All My Life is like one of the biggest R&B songs of the 90s. And yeah, they're in for me. And lastly, of course, Devontae branched out and brought us Timbaland, Genuine, and Missy. So that was cool too. So they're in for me.
Well, I think this is an open shut case, player. As I was talking about a little bit earlier in the conversation, and something that's kind of overlooked today, they really changed the game for R&B. They really took the genre into a different direction when they landed in 91, because they mixed R&B and hip-hop in a way that was very fresh at the time, because as much as people look back on New Jack Swing and really miss that era, listen, player, by 91, New Jack Swing was getting very old because everyone was doing the same thing. And here these guys are coming. They took a little bit of New Jack Swing, took a little bit of that classic Motown sound, layered hip-hop over it, and it just was a game changer. And from there, from Mary J. Blige to R. Kelly, later on Usher, and the Drew Hills and the 112s and the Jagged Edges, all of that kind of followed the vein that they started. I don't know if I would call any of their albums 5 stars. I have to go back and listen. But Forever My Lady is probably a classic. I can probably say that just from the influence that it had alone. So, without question, they are Hall of Famers. No question.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. The only thing I'll add is that I'm glad you bunched Casey and JoJo in here. I wouldn't, if you had picked them individually, Casey and JoJo, I wouldn't have had them as Hall of Famers. So,
no.
But definitely Jodeci.
No, I don't think Casey and JoJo has. I have to go back and listen, but I don't remember them having a good album.
Ed?
I was not a big fan of the Casey and JoJo era. So I'd have to go back and listen to it again. All My Life was played all of my life, and I don't ever want to hear that song again. So, yeah. Although it was very successful, it also got on my last nerve because it was just so ever present. But as far as their albums and stuff, I don't remember it being anything that special. So, no, not on their own, but as a collective, no question.
All right. So for our pick, Tom, you picked last week, and now it's my turn to pick. So just based on some of the people that I've tried to induct into the Hall of Fame in recent times, we have, Tyrese, we had Drew Hill, and we had Trey Songz. You guys all gave them a no, which was very disappointing.
Stomped all over your picks.
And upset me dearly. But guys, I think this one, I think I got one with this one. I think you guys are going to induct this person. Because when we look at the Hall of Fame, right, we look at hits, we look at records being broken, and we look at the impact. And this artist, guys, when we talk about hits, this artist has hits. When we talk about records being broken, this person is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the highest female debut ever. When we talk about impact, we talk about the collaborations of the 2000s. She's up there. Guys, I'm talking about the princess of R&B and hip-hop from the most talented record label, Murder Inc. I'm talking about Miss Ashanti.
I knew it was
Kyle,
coming.
Your life is such a disappointment.
Who, by the way, Ed, I know Deborah Cox is your wife in another life. This is my wife in another life, who also has the best Instagram page of all Instagram users, if that will help my case for this nomination.
That does help your case. That Instagram is Hall of Fame. I will say that. But if we talking about music, Lord help. Tom, please go before I have to drag out the casket that we put R&B in.
I feel like we always talk about Tyrese's ego. I feel like the biggest ego I've ever seen from a female artist has to be Ashanti. I'm just saying. If you follow her Instagram, man, that is all.
Now,
it's an obvious no. I mean, for me. So, what do we?
Obviously, now we have talked about my range of crushes, R&B crushes over the years, because we got Adina Howard, we got Deborah Cox, we got early 2000s Claudette Ortiz, and Ashanti was up in there at one point too. But Lord help me, like, how many albums does she have now? Maybe 4 or 5. The only album that I would even put above 3.5 stars was maybe The Declaration. And although she did...
Man. Wait, what? What about the debut?
Even though she did... That too. That album is so uneven. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to give you facts.
Someone cut this guy's mic off. Come on.
Because have you listened to that album? Good Lord. Like, it's got some good singles. But other than that, and we're not even going to talk about the vocals. And it's funny that we say this because I just wrote a piece on Soul and Stereo on Friday talking about how artists and a lot of fans don't give Ashanti the credit that she deserves. As far as an artist in the 2000s, she was one of the most visible ones. But when we look back at the totality of her career, sorry, player. I love you, but... that output was not popping.
Hold on, I got some actual commentary. So, think about it like this. Was she one of the most successful of her generation?
Yep.
So there you go. Isn't that enough of a case to maybe put her in?
Not if the albums are half whack.
So you're saying if she was one of the most successful of her generation and the albums were whack, what does that say about the whole generation as a whole?
Well, you can't measure success just by that alone because, unfortunately, people will buy anything. I think Drake broke a whole bunch of records off of this last album. And what did I give that, like a 3.5? So I'm not just going by that. Sometimes the hype kind of goes a little bit higher than actually output is what I'm saying. And Ashanti has some songs. Like, she has 4 or 5 really good songs, but as far as
4 or
total
5
albums,
what the hell?
Yes.
What is going on?
What? Oh my goodness!
Please, Kyle, Mr. Superfan, name some Ashanti songs.
I actually like Ashanti myself, to be honest.
Oh, Tom.
Guys, I forgot
You're a grilled chicken.
I forgot to make one more point about Ashanti. I think that will solidify my case, in terms of putting her in the Hall of Fame. She is the only artist, aside from the Beatles, to have 3 songs in the top 100 at one time. It was Foolish, What's Love, and Always on Time. With the Beatles, who would make our Hall of Fame, even though they don't make R&B.
Always on Time, Foolish, and some other random song are up there with the Beatles.
What do you mean some random song?
Time.
What's Love with Fat Joe was a huge single. Random
That song was horrendous.
Oh my God.
Did you hear those vocals? Them joints were paper thin, player. What's love?
What is going on here?
Man.
All right, hold on. I'm actually an Ashanti fan. I like her music, Ed. You're a little off base here. I'm sorry, man.
No, but I love Ashanti. I like her as a person, and I love a few of her singles, but I ain't gonna front like she is Whitney Houston. Come on now.
Here's what happened to me though. So she was off to a great start. She had 3 albums in her first 3 years, but then in the next, what's been like 13 years after that, she only put out 2 albums. So to me, she just wasn't consistent enough. But to me, the real nail in the coffin was when they pulled her off that Fabulous track, that single, and put Tamia back on it in her rightful place. That was embarrassing to me.
And see, we've talked about this before. Why did they pull her off of that? Because she sounded a hot mess.
I'm just saying.
There you go, right there.
You guys are killing me. But can we at least acknowledge the fact that she was the blueprint for these R&B and hip-hop collaborations in the 2000s? Let's give her that.
I don't know if I would say she was the blueprint. I think Murder Inc. they had a formula that they put together because between her, Ja Rule, J-Lo, I think they had a little formula going. But some of y'all on a little bit of revisionist history here, player, because outside of Foolish and the Foolish remix, and maybe Rock With You. I don't really know what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing what y'all hearing. Jeez.
Who invited this guy into this podcast anyway?
What is going on?
Oh my goodness.
Well, someone has to be the adult in the room. Good Lord.
All right, let's...
Trying to put Ashanti in the Hall of Fame.
I feel like we're close. All right, let's do a vote right now.
He's just cranky because after the last podcast, when we asked if Keith Sweat was the sexiest man alive, the response was the answer was no. Ed's still cranky about that.
I'm a little salty about that, but that's neither here nor there, player.
All right, let's have a quick yes or no. Ashanti Hall of Fame. Yes or no, guys? Ed?
I go ahead, Ed.
Do we even have to... into the no.
Tom?
See, for me, it's a no, but I think it's closer than he's giving it credit for. If she had been more consistent with releasing music over the past decade, then maybe I would have thought about it closer. She had a shot. I mean, she's got hits. Whether you think she can sing or not, Ed. She's got hits.
No, she's got hits. I will definitely agree with you. And as much shade as I'm throwing, I really am an Ashanti fan.
Really?
It might not sound...
What?
Yes, I am.
All 5 of her good songs?
Yes, all 5 of those songs are on my iPod and still rocking.
This is out of control.
Oh, man. All right, well, Ed,
Ed started drinking early today.
Ed, you're nominating next week, so just remember, whoever you nominate is going down.
Oh, look at this hate.
Anyway.
I need to nominate... I'll make sure I'll nominate Stevie Wonder or somebody, so it's like the ship can't sink.
Yep.
Oh.
All right. Well, that concludes our Hall of Fame discussion for this week. Congratulations to Jodeci for being included, and I might have to sneak Ashanti into another Hall of Fame discussion down the line, just in case you guys forget.
Oh God.
But anyway, on to the food discussion now. I actually I was thinking about this for our food discussion because we've been struggling with it to come up with an idea. So I have something presented to you guys. Whenever you guys go to a house party or a party, what's that one dish or food item that you should not bring because no one will like it? Or what's the food item that will be a guaranteed success?
The last food item that always pops at the parties I go to is... I'm seeing a lot of buffalo chicken dip lately. And that stuff is banging.
I feel like you can't go wrong with like some type of chips and salsa.
Yeah, like that's just a staple.
Like if you just brought a plate of steamed broccoli, I think that would be a disaster.
Yep. You know what I think?
Clearly it's a hot party at the Leo house. My gosh.
You know what actually works better in theory than in reality? Veggie platters and fruit platters. No one touches those.
Listen, and we have pretty gatherings up at Soul and Stereo Studios pretty regularly. And my wife always gets a veggie platter and a fruit platter because she's like, oh, someone wants to be healthy, blah, blah, blah. And when we leave and we have to clean up and everybody's gone and I'm cleaning up, there's still that entire fruit tray and veggie tray that's sitting there untouched.
Yep.
And then we put it in the refrigerator and it sits in the fridge like 3 weeks. That happens every single party. Nobody goes to a party and wants to eat like a rabbit.
I got 2 food questions for you guys, actually, real quick.
Okay.
Number 1, is Taco Tuesdays a real thing?
Oh, it's a thing down here.
I think it is, actually.
Yes.
Who made that up?
It is
Taco
a legit
Bell?
thing. I don't know where it came from, to be honest.
Oh, I thought that was their marketing plan or something.
No, I don't think it's a Taco Bell thing because... if it was, it seemed like it'd be a little more heavy-handed. But, no, I don't know where it is, but it is a legit thing.
Okay, number 2. If you're going to one of these dinner parties that Kyle talked about, and say you brought something, right? You brought your food or whatever, and then the host didn't put it out, so it went untouched, right? Are you entitled to bring that food back with you?
Yes. Yep.
You are?
Yep. Or
Ed?
Yes.
You are, but I'll put it like this. If I did that, I would probably leave it. Because if I bought it, it's not like I really want to take it back with me. But, I mean, you're entitled to take it back if you want. But it's going to be kind of weird to be like, hey, can I get that thing back? It just seems weird, player.
Okay, what if it's just like a bag of chips?
Well, see...
Are you really that hard up for some Lay's?
My wife will not let me do it. She's like, if you're bringing something, that's like your gift to the house for the party.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm like, if they don't even make an effort to put it out, that's kind of messed up.
Well, they probably forgot, player. Shout out to Marlene, because I'm glad there's a little bit of sense in this house. While this dude is eating chicken, listening to Ashanti's first album. Talking about classic.
Classic.
But, yeah, it's kind of like your party tax. Like, you come and you drop off the food, and it's kind of their food. But I don't know next time Kyle comes over to give him his bag of Lay's back.
Barbecue flavored. Barbecue flavored, too.
No, you're on the way out. You know, you're getting your coat. You're like, all right, no, I'll take my bag of Fritos back while I'm at it.
Oh my God.
That's no.
I'll throw it in the driveway and be like, "Go get it."
Jeez.
Oh well, I tried.
Man. All right, guys. I know we're running out of time here, so Ed, why don't you fill us in on what's going on with SoInStereo.com?
Well, as my boy Tom mentioned a little earlier, we've got a new edition of the Love Letters up. Go check that out. I answered a couple more questions. And if you have some questions yourself, just hit me on the Twitters because, Lord, I got a bunch of questions I still have left to get to. And we got a pretty big week coming up for rap. So I expect to have a review of the new Kendrick Lamar album by the time we have our next podcast. So keep an eye out on the site for that. And any other new surprises that might come out, because apparently these artists are just randomly releasing albums all over the place. So who knows what's going to drop next week?
Mm-hmm. And Tom, YouKnowIGotSoul.com. What's going on over there?
We're trying to get a Mary J. Blige interview. We named the last podcast. Someone tell Mary J. Blige to hit us up. Well, she did not hit us up, but we're still going to try to get that interview somehow, some way. It might be a long shot, but it must happen, so we'll see.
Yep.
Other than that, it's been slow, man. Not much happened last week in R&B. We had those 2 new releases out of nowhere. I don't really have any interviews lined up or shows. So, what about you? Anything going on out there?
Not much, really, but I'm just quickly taking a look at our YouTube comments for the last podcast, the one with Mary J. Blige. Ed, you really pissed off some fans there.
What did I do this time?
Well, one fan said, you guys definitely need to interview Mary J. Blige, but leave the black guy out of it.
The black guy.
That was
Thanks,
funny.
Trump.
Actually, didn't they say the host could interview her, but leave the black guy out? And what about me? I'm not even mentioned.
You're the guy. You're gonna be fixing the camera. That's what you're doing.
Okay.
I get all the
right,
shine.
got it.
Yep.
Jeez.
Anywho, guys, so we're gonna have to call it a podcast for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about some more things and induct some more people into the Hall of Fame. I'm actually curious to see what everyone's gonna say about this travesty of not inducting Ashanti into the Hall of Fame. But we'll talk about that more
they're
next.
gonna be mad at the black guy again. Kick the black guy off.
Anyways, guys, we'll chat next week. This is Kyle, Ed, and Tom signing out. Peace.
Peace, guys.